Hey rock stars, welcome back to another episode of I Rock the Mic. I'm your host, the photographer, rock gods, Mike Klein. Before we plug in today, don't forget to check us out online and of course on Spotify and iTunes. Just search Rock the Mic. That's M-I-K-E, and you'll see all of our latest podcasts, episodes, and upcoming events. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Speaking of rock gods, live on the rock line, Bruce Kulick. How are you, sir?
Great. How's it going?
Good, man. How are things on the road?
Well, fortunately, I do get to go home in between the roads, so that's even better, okay? The whole thing with Grand Funk and even the other things that I get to do on my own, I don't do anything too extended journey type things unless it's international. Then I'll try to do a few weeks or whatever. But we mostly do these fly weekend dates, so this past weekend was great because I was able to also do like a special meet and greet performance kind of thing, interview thing in Minnesota. So that's kind of fun that I was able to do a couple of things in one weekend, you know. But it's more fun to be home. But obviously, need to go out there to play guitar. I can't invite everybody to my home to play.
So you're back. So you're back on the West Coast now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've toured all over the world. Like, does it ever get old?
Well, the travel part of it, I actually had my wife with me this weekend, and some of the lines, even when you try to do everything you can to have that advantage of not waiting online, for security or whatever, always can creep up on you, because of the time and whatever. And I said to her, I have to do this because this is part of my career and business, but clearly you see like groups of people traveling for pleasure, and I go like, how do people do that? So what I'm saying, but she made a really valid point. She goes like, well, they only do it maybe once a year. You do it every weekend. So obviously when there's inconveniences, as much as you're used to it, it kind of drains you, so I enjoy some of the, you go to an interesting state that's known for something, that's fun to see. Okay. Or the food that changes, people are people no matter where in the world, and they love music. So let's just remove all that. But, really the biggest joy is usually when you have a successful event or when you're performing on stage and everyone's having a great time. So everyone needs to know that's why a performer does it. Of course, they make a living at it, which is, obviously everybody thinks it's so glamorous, and it isn't always, even though that joy of being on stage and playing an instrument for a living obviously is a real gift, and it's a real blessing. But again, living that kind of almost like a gypsy lifestyle, and traveling so much, that's the really hard part of it. So I do try to make it as convenient as possible. I always have a lot of my comfort stuff with me to keep me happy, and I listen to music I enjoy, and I try to tune out the chaos because I don't love flying, and I don't love crowds, you know what I mean? And that's what an airport is, you know what I mean? So you have to just deal with it the best you can.
It's funny, like I've toured a lot, not as much as you, but being a photographer and touring, and you definitely miss your own bed, and you miss the quiet of home. And people don't realize, like, man, you're always on the road, it must be great. And it's like, living on a tour bus sometimes or living suitcase to suitcase is not exactly fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't done like a real bus tour in a while. There was some dates in Australia 2 years ago where we had a bus for part of the run. And in some ways it was cool because it was so limited, and then everybody hanging out on the bus. There was an opening act that I was friends with. That was kind of fun, but 8 hours of it isn't fun.
Sure.
So yeah, it gets. I got to give a lot of credit to my friends Brent Fitz and Todd Kearns, the guys that were with me on that last Kiss cruise, who are really talented, and they're touring with Slash, and they're doing like 20, 21 or 22 countries or places in 3 months, and it's crazy. I can't even imagine how jet lagged they are.
That's crazy you said that, because I was just reading an article about Slash, and I guess he's back on the road with Miles, and they're touring, and then there's a lot of conversation about Guns N' Roses going back in the studio.
Of course.
Yeah. So
yeah. No, I mean, I'm real happy that he just loves to play guitar. I've met him a few times. We've had a few chats, and I just know all he wants to do is play, and he's got the Guns N' Roses things, but then as soon as that's quiet, he's off with his own thing, and he's got a terrific band, so he's very fortunate, but I know the Guns will gear up again.
Well, Grand Funk is going pretty strong right now. I mean, you guys are rolling. I saw a ton of tour dates for you guys. What's your favorite song on any given night to play?
Well, first of all the songs in the set are in some way, have their place in the set, and they're either strong album tracks or actual hits, big hits, things like Some Kind of Wonderful and Locomotion and We're an American Band, which we close with, of course. And it's funny, a lot of my Kiss fan friends don't realize that Grand Funk is connected to those songs, until they go and they
Sure.
realize. But I have to admit, there's a song called Inside Looking Out that I know when I was young and I first heard of Grand Funk and checked them out. I remember seeing them perform this kind of heavy metal trio vibe, guitar solo, tour de force, and that one's in the set. And of course, I get a chance to really showboat on that. So in some ways, that's the most exciting thing for me. Although the whole set is strong, and this year marks our especially for Don and Mel. I wasn't there in '69, as you know, but I joined in like '99, 2000, and now it's 50 years. It's amazing.
So when you're on the bus,
really, we do fly dates and we meet up. Sometimes we'll take a van around a bit for a longer weekend, or then we're off to the airport and fly to another date. So there's no bus. No bus.
No bus. Okay. So what are you listening to? Like what gets you before you hit the stage?
Well, look, I love lots of different things. There's certain times, of course, some of my favorite bands are the Beatles and Led Zeppelin. Lately, I got turned on to Greta Van Fleet, which I find fascinating. Especially the new record. I just can't believe how these guys kind of like channeled they like a time machine, and all of a sudden they're Led Zeppelin. It's really weird. But I love it, and
yeah.
I'm so excited for them. Rock really hasn't been getting enough, new, fresh bands that are legitimate. And unfortunately, what's popular when you go to your iTunes or whatever, service that you may look at music or new music, I just can't believe that I don't see anything that I would even, touch with a 10-foot pole. I know I wouldn't like it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean something to people. I know it does, but I don't bother with that. So I do listen to a lot of the stuff that inspired me. But I should be honest, though, lately, in the last 2 or 3 years, I got very motivated to study and listen to a lot of the music from people like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Love the Rat Pack. I always did. I got really hooked into Frank Sinatra's catalog, and the guy was prolific with putting out music, and I just think he's like a tremendous singer. And I do love the tunes. You got to remember he did really the best songs. They call it the American standards, and a lot of people cover those songs. And it's fascinating. I was just told my wife how I read Trisha Yearwood. I know she's a country artist, but I've heard of her. A famous country singer. She covered a Frank Sinatra record, so we were kind of listening to it. And then I go like, it still blows my mind. You got Bob Dylan putting out records, Bob Dylan being a prolific, legend and songwriter, but he covers Frank Sinatra records, okay, and Willie Nelson doing stuff like that. So for me, I know it's kind of odd because, I still go nuts when I hear a Cream song or a Who song or a Beatles song or a Led Zeppelin song, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I've discovered a whole new genre of quality songwriting with really amazing performances. And then on occasion, there's really good guitar playing on some of Frank's stuff. It's not like it's all just, but I love strings, and some of his best stuff during the Capitol years were with a small string section, and I just get really drawn into a lot of that stuff. And the reason why I'm talking about it so much is just that it's kind of like if you discover later in your life, let's say you always ate hot dogs and hamburgers and you didn't realize there's such things as steak or some other interesting food you're aware of, but you didn't enjoy it, and then suddenly you have it, and then you're like, this is really delicious too. So I just like kind of in some ways my musical diet got richer from it all.
And that it's kind of the great thing about music because it's always there. You just never knew it, or you'll discover it differently or hear it differently. So, no, I agree.
Yeah. And 10 or 20 years ago, even if you said to me, so like, what are some of the bands you love? I know I would have mentioned, I always loved Joni Mitchell. I still do. Okay. But what I'm saying, there's nothing new to discover. Here with Frank's career and Dean and the Rat Pack and all those artists, there's just so much to delve into, as you can imagine, because they really did have long, fruitful careers. And I would have said maybe a Steely Dan, because I always liked kind of like some of the more jazzy pop. You know, I love Yes, and you know, so there were certain bands that are very different from rock and roll that some of my fans or people would think that I'd be into. You know, so I really did have a, you know, if you look on my YouTube channel, and if you look at some of my Facebook, every holiday the past 3 years, my wife and I covered a Christmas standard, and I'm just playing like more like a jazzy guitar to back her. I'm not playing a rock version, but, you know, later today we're planning on filming a little Tears Are Falling thing that I could put on Facebook. You see what I mean? So I'm not forgetting about or negating my right. My Kiss years or what I'm known for. I'm just kind of celebrating a bigger musical diet, because I really do enjoy it.
Now, was there ever a favorite song of yours with Kiss when you were performing?
Well, I have to admit that since we kept moving it around, and then of course we had to do a lot of this, you know, some of their biggest hits. You know, like I always enjoyed Detroit Rock City. I think it's got a lot of interesting parts. Okay, I can't, I'm not even sure. Some of the staples like Heaven's on Fire and Lick It Up, it was like, although, you know, again, that's because I'm so used to playing them, you know. I always loved if there was a new record and we were trying something and if it really stuck. Unfortunately, a lot of the new records, the new song didn't, you know. Certainly when we used to do Crazy Nights, we always get a great reaction. I enjoyed playing that. But when you look at Alive 3, which is a great combination of where we were at in 92 or so, and then, of course, celebrating the past, there's a lot of great songs there, but I'm not so sure I have my favorite. I do have a few favorites of the Makeup era that we didn't get to play much. Like some of the Unplugged stuff was amazing. I always loved, Do You Love Me? I didn't realize how great that was. Or Rock Bottom, you know, I mean, it was so simple yet it's so clever. And, I remember around that era too, we started putting in 100,000 Years into the set. I loved when we started using Watching You. You know, She was another one that was really, really fun to play. And I think that, you know, especially those that I just mentioned, I don't think I ever got to play them with Eric Carr. So the versions that Eric Singer and myself did with Gene and Paul, I find to be really special, you know. So they're kind of the supercharged versions in a way. So, and Watching You, I think, is on Alive 3, and I always really did enjoy playing that, but it was a little later on in my years with them.
So switching focus, I read a lot about some co-writing credits you had, and one artist kind of threw me for a loop, and it was something I didn't know. So I don't think a lot of people know there were some co-writing credits with Kanye West.
Right, and that is a weird thing. And just recently, it's kind of cool. I follow a lot of people's Twitters and stuff, and all of a sudden, in the Twitter feed came up, and it was just this February, you know, that 15 years ago, Kanye West puts out, The College Dropout, his debut record. And we all know, you know, Kanye is such a big figure in the music community, and of course he became very much, kind of like a controversial figure.
Sure.
Because of his, his various, performances at Grammys and things and presentations, and then he gets to be like pals with Trump, which is very, very unique, obviously being a black artist. So he's always been a trip. But it was really simple. I mean, the whole sampling world, or how artists, like a lot of the big rap artists, in general, they do look at other people's records. And I didn't realize through the years, like a Billy Squier, who I also worked with, was sampled, and Leslie West had something sampled, actually either borrowed or they rewrote or whatever. There's various usages of rock and roll through the 70s and stuff like that, or even earlier, that these artists find, and they're very creative. So what Kanye did, I suddenly got a call on the phone, my business phone that was tied to my ASCAP, which is the performance rights, So Michael Bolton and I did 2 Blackjack records, and the second album had that album didn't get much action, but obviously Kanye heard it, whatever. And there was a song called Never Let Me Down. And he wound up wanting to, kind of borrow the melody and the vibe of it. And it was all just like a crazy phone call that I'm like, somebody representing who's making the clearances for the record. And the next thing I know, I'm asking my manager to deal with it. Next thing I know, we're contacting Michael. And the next thing I know, there he is recording. Kanye would like to speed up tempos and things like that and change, but a big part of the verse of the song that Michael and I had became that entire song, which was really cool. Now, I heard of him. I read the entertainment magazines and Rolling Stone and stuff, but I didn't know. And then all of a sudden it sells like 2-3 million records, and he became a huge star. So it's pretty cool. It's a weird connection, and then at the same time, I did realize later on that like some of those other artists that I told you have been, sampled and credited and all that. So it's interesting.
Well, it's funny because that was one of his biggest, the debut record, but it was one of the biggest records he had. It even won Grammys for Best Rap Album. So
yeah,
that was a huge record, man.
I have a beautiful big gold, multi-platinum award thing from it too, because, if you're involved in something and you're entitled to that,
When was the last time you had spoke to Michael Bolton?
So Michael and I, we keep in touch more with email, and the guy is super busy and super successful. I'm very proud of him. It's so ironic. There's so many casinos that I play with Grand Funk, and there's a, awesome poster of him signed to the casino that's on the wall. I always grab a photo and send it to him. I think last fall, Grand Funk, we did a date where the drummer that performed with us during the time when I actually really got to meet Don Brewer, we opened for Seeger, and Brewer was playing drums for Seeger at the time. This guy, Bobby Torello, was backstage with Bill Ludwig from the Ludwig Drum Company, So we took a picture, and I had to send it to Michael because that was, I met him through Michael. So, and it's really ironic. His favorite engineer is a guy that did a lot of work on my last solo record, BK3. So it's kind of funny that, it's a small world, you know what I mean? And I get a kick out of, I know there's a lot of love for the Blackjack thing, and he's even discussed with me a few times, I really think I'm going to do a rock record, and I'm going to call you. We're going to do some stuff. I'm waiting for the call, but I do know that he came really around with it. I know when he first became a big star, he kind of distanced himself from the rock era that he was known for, but I think now he's proud of everything he's done because the guy's always been a very, very talented man.
It's so funny to me, and it's been years ago now, like I hadn't heard anything from Michael Bolton, and I was looking at a Lonely Island record, and he did, what was it, Captain Jack.
Right.
And I will never forget watching the video.
Yeah,
and I was like, what a riot that is. Like, it's great.
I spoke to him about that after that happened. I told him how, kind of, a lot of people used to take pot shots at him because he is a very dramatic singer, and he became so huge, and mostly with the ladies. I think a lot of guys, he was easy to make fun of. I think in that movie, Office Space or something, he gets joked on in that movie. But by teaming with the Saturday Night Live thing and doing a funny skit and making a parody of himself, it was a brilliant move, really brilliant move. I really think he self-manages himself too and makes all the decisions. But the last time we had a really quality time when we had dinner in Los Angeles, it was very enjoyable because it was just like us in the back in the late 70s and 80s, so it was very funny. So, I'm especially happy I introduced him to Paul Stanley for Forever because that's a great song that they wrote. And my solos, obviously, that's one of my highlights with Kiss, so I'm grateful for that.
Well, just for the record, it is actually one of my favorite songs by Kiss, so thank you.
All right. There you go.
Well, talking about Kiss, a couple months ago, you were on the cruise. You were out to sea with the whole Kiss cruise and the Kiss Army. What was it like when you took the stage? You shared the stage with Tommy and Ace. Have you ever done that before?
Well, not since Unplugged.
Right. Okay.
And obviously it wasn't Tommy and, it was Ace and Peter. But it was quite a thrill. I kind of thought it could happen, especially with all the the fact that Ace was there, and I know the cruises are really special, and that was, everyone's there, and all I needed was a little heads up, and went up to Tommy's cabin, and we went over something with like, okay, which guitar will I play? What's your arrangement for that? And the next thing I know, I'm doing 6 songs on stage with them. It was crazy. It really was, but it was really, really a great night, and I know the fans really loved it. And it was right around the timing of them announcing their farewell tour, their end of the road tour. So, but it was very cool. I really enjoyed it, and what can I say? There's something really intimate about acoustic performances, and that's why Unplugged works so well. And those guys could have maybe done something like that at the Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Fame was very adamant about only wanting the makeup guys, and Gene and Paul didn't want that because they're proud of Tommy and Eric, and they also wanted to include me, and how would they do that when the Hall of Fame only wanted to celebrate the makeup years, so that was important.
Did you know that you were going on stage like before the cruise, or did they say it during?
Well, I kept bothering the people that work for the band. If it's going to happen, I need a little notice. I don't want to just be handed a guitar. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And they were kind of like, Eric was like, it'll probably happen. Just be prepared. Kind of thing.
Sure.
But there was no like, okay, and we're going to do this. So, there certainly was. It wasn't a no way. You know what I mean? But it wasn't an official green light, if you get what I mean. Not until a short while before they hit the stage.
So, talking about Eric, plans with ESP, are you guys talking anything after End of the Road?
It is ironic that you brought that up, only because we, through our mutual friend who always has helped us, I didn't actually ever speak with Eric directly. I know, them gearing up for this tour was, and I'm very happy that they're successful and it's going well. But it was a big deal, big show, big stage, big everything. And they haven't done it in a while in such a huge way, meaning, a real committed long tour and the whole thing. So I didn't bother Eric a lot. I know he was rehearsing, a lot, and those guys work really hard. But the guy that works with us said, when there's some time, I really want, I want us to discuss ESP, and I thought it was a little weird, especially, this tour could go for 3 years, so like, why are we talking? But I think it, it was like before it really started and everything, and I don't really know, but I will put it out there and just say that Eric and I enjoy working together, and when the time and the stars align, shall I say, I could see us doing things together. Okay, right now I don't know how he has time to do anything other than get ready for the show and then travel to the next gig and everything. They have a really grueling schedule. I mean, they're fortunate if they could do it in the best way, with a private plane, and they have a huge staff and crew, but it's still the amount of time it takes with these guys, and between the makeup and the meet and greets and the promotions and the radio shows, these guys really work hard. I know. I mean, they used to work me really hard, but there wasn't the hour of makeup and those outfits to put on, okay? So I just know that I always give that band so much credit for their, hard work ethic, and I learned a lot from that.
Well, it's crazy because Keith Valcourt at Rhino, which is doing some of the vault experiences with Gene.
Yeah, the vault.
Those guys are Gene's doing it on his days off, and then he's flying to the next day.
I heard that there were vault experiences going on his days off, that's Gene. He doesn't believe in the day off, and I get it. I know that, Eric will be offered things, and he may or may not do them on the days off because, he realizes, I think I need a day to recharge, besides drums being such a physical thing, but just proud of them for being out there and doing their thing, and I'm sure Gene still wants to sell a few more of those, especially at that price, right?
I'm sure, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I have a part of that. I have co-writes on it, and I was there for him on that very first vault thing, and that was when Ace was there, and we all jammed a little bit. It was pretty fun. We'll see if he comes back to the West Coast or anything. So,
in the future, what kind of plans do you have? Touring? Are you working on a new record yourself, solo record?
Well, obviously, I know this is going to be a busy year for Grand Funk, and with it being, actually celebrating the 50th anniversary, and I do think that a lot of the people that we always get a great response, and the bookers hear about it, and even if it isn't with all original members, and it's just two of the Grand Funk guys. The other band members with myself really round out this thing that I could see why we get a lot of repeat gigs. So it's going to be a busy year with the band. I think we'll really hit a respectable number of dates. And then usually on those kind of softer months, sometimes I fill it in with different things. Recording wise, and I do plan on doing other things. I know there might be a guitar type show that I'll make an appearance at, or another Kiss Expo in Indianapolis. We'll see. I did that, meet and greet kind of Q&A type thing in Minneapolis. Maybe there'll be more things like that. So we'll see. I know that people are already talking to me about Australia to try to go. I don't like to go too far down the line, and there's obviously the chance I'll be on the next cruise. So I take Grand Funk as that's my main course, and then I, fill it in, with all the other dishes, if you get what I mean.
Right on.
Now, regarding the recording thing, I really should be doing something with new music, and I really know that it's been hard for me to focus to do it, and I think I have a great opportunity now with some guys I love playing with, that instead of doing like a solo thing, that I could actually record with the band that performed on the cruise. I mean, the reaction that we got, and the talent of Todd, Brent, and Zach, who's the bass player, who also sings very well. Ironically, these guys, they all play other instruments too. Brent does gigs on bass, where he's the bass player. He's a drummer. Todd can play either guitar or bass. He's playing bass with Slash, but he's my guitarist because he's actually a guitarist. Zach plays bass in my group and other things, but he's actually a guitarist. He just did these dates with the Slipknot singer Corey, and he's playing guitar. It's a very you'll only see me on guitar, okay? Even though I play bass, I play bass on your favorite song forever, okay? That's me playing bass. So, but with that talent and those guys' voices and their keen awareness of my Kiss years and the band that I had union with John Corabi and Brent, could really make quite an interesting recordings, I think. So I'm hoping when everyone's schedules calm down a little bit and we're all in the same place, which is we will be during the spring, we can get together and try to work on some material and record something. And that's the other thing, that down the line, if I do something with Eric, the opportunities of a lot of our friends that we love that are so talented, like Corabi or Todd and Brent and all, could be guesting on our material, you know what I mean, of the covers of whatever we choose. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. First, we got to find the time. I know how logistically things have to be, but I'm very aware of them, and I'm excited that all those opportunities are kind of out there, and they could really be, created to the fans' delight. So that's a good thing.
Well, I think it's going to be a big year. I'm sure.
Good, thank you.
I'm sure I'm going to see you on the road at some point, even if it's the cruise or an expo or just a Grand Funk show.
Sure. Excellent. And last year, I just want to make a note that I launched a new website. A fan actually bought the name when they heard me talk about that I don't even own, BruceKulick.com, which, there's a lot of people that snag people's names. And he kind of gifted it to me, which was a very kind thing, a guy in Norway. So I set up a whole new design for a simpler website, and it has obviously some news. I know something I want to film today I could use for it, but and then the merch store, I introduced a few new things there. A multi-swirl mini guitar, which eventually will be a big one, and the BK3, that last product I put out, I did red vinyl. I know the way the collectors get on 180 gram if you're a vinyl guy. So I'm working on offering some new things, and I'm always looking at things like that. I've had people say, like, why don't you do a bobble doll, a bobblehead rather, whatever, Bruce Kulick doll. I'm like,
Well, the mini guitars are awesome. I mean, did you do yours through Axe Heaven?
Right, I do it through Axe Heaven. 2 years ago, I put out in a very limited number the banana one, and that sold out very quickly. And now the multi-swirl, I ordered a lot more, but it's also a limited number, and I'm getting low with that, and it came out amazing. They do a terrific job. I'm hoping to do another one, probably early next year, look at another model. But I'm also really excited about offering the full-size guitars. The 10 or 12 of the bananas that I offered in 17 sold out in one day, and I ordered more of these multi-swirl ones. It's a similar Strat ESP M1 vibe, like some of my early Kiss guitars. So it takes time to do all that and have them made and all, because I'm ordering them and offering them. It's not really from the company and the stores, but it's exciting.
And you can get that on your website.
Well, I'll be announcing it on my website and Facebook. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So that's really what's going on. I hope to do some more things with my wife, Lisa, too. She's a terrific singer. We performed Reason to Live in Minneapolis at that, Q&A
at the expo
thing. Yeah. And it came out great. She's a terrific singer, so that's always fun to have people like that as well. And I'm looking forward to, obviously, if the cruise happens, mixing up those songs and doing another killer couple sets on the cruise. We'll see what happens. So it'll be an exciting year. Well,
you're definitely a rock star. I appreciate your time.
Well, all right, thank you. I got to keep myself humble here. So
awesome.
I'm a busy guitar player. Okay, there you go.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you on the road, and I appreciate you rocking out with us today.
Not a problem. I hope your pod people enjoyed our chat.